Hi, soul friends. Thanks to you, we're building a beautiful community. We hope you find our conversations interesting and helpful. If you do, you can help us by liking the podcast, sharing it with friends, and following it for updates. Click on like, share, and follow on your podcast platform, and we will continue to meet you here in this beautiful space with our conversations and our guests. So let's get to our episode. Hello, SoulNet. Welcome back. We are so happy to have you with us for this conversation. It's vulnerable. We're getting real about some of the changes that we're experiencing with our bodies, our brains, just some of the things that are coming with age. And it's not all bad. It's actually, there's some fun too. But we're getting real about it and just sharing each other's experiences. So let's dive in.
I think you guys know I have a pretty strong connection to the cosmos and in particular to the moon. And many of us do, whether we, are aware of how just connected we are to its cycles or not. And the full moon has always signified a letting go to me. And in particular, these last few years, and I really am starting to see the correlation of this midlife journey into, peri-menopause and learning to embrace some of these physical changes that are going on and accepting this is part of aging and changing into different times of life. So, as you guys know, I've been in fitness for so many years, and it's been a lot about the body, and I've had the body for so long. And so as I'm in this, perimenopausal piece, I'm having some of these, physical changes that are going on, some of the, cognitive changes too. I've got some brain fog that kind of shows up in these inopportune moments, and a few of these other kind of physical symptoms that we experience as women going through this kind of change of life. And I'm really choosing to meet myself really where I am. Again, recognizing that I can manipulate my body to be back the way it once was, but it's taking me into the past of who I no longer am. And so I've been really working to this continued thing of accepting myself as I am, as this aging journey. And, I think a lot of us go, when we see the wrinkles and we see some of these changes in ourselves, it's really easy to focus on those physical changes. And I'm not about denouncing any of that. We want to look and feel our best. And actually, interestingly enough, that's actually what Ayurveda's main intention is actually about preserving health of both body, mind, and spirit. So it's a natural version of anti-aging. And it's the path that I've chosen to go down instead of, cosmetics and trying to mask the changing me. So I'm really trying to lean into accepting fully this changing self. And instead of, again, trying to control and put myself back into this kind of box, I wanted to kind of see how you guys are feeling with some of these, physical changes, some of these emotional changes, and what are some of the biggest struggles that you might be having in this kind of middle age part.
Yeah. So many.
That's so many.
We don't have
count the ways.
To count the ways. It's in the last year and a half that I've really woken up to mortality. This has been an personal experience. I'm no longer in that ignorant bliss of being naive of my own death and my loved ones' deaths. So I now live with a very conscious awareness that I've got maybe 30 years left on this planet, 40 years, if I'm really, And I actually no longer have a desire to live a really long time. I just want it to be of quality with intention. I was in a fantasy of immortality. I was in this naive, ignorant kind of bliss, but in a way, kind of just ignorant. And the new me, the new birth of that identity is very engaged with the reality of the world now, which has some downside to it because it's like every day I'm grieving loss. But I think it's healthy to be in that reality place, because then I'm more focused on what actually matters.
Was there a tipping point for you?
It was my mountain biking accident, that recuperating for months after from a pretty severe concussion and facial lacerations. And then, so that was the wake up call also around my, well, I wouldn't call it obsession, but like preoccupation with my looks.
Fair.
Seriously, my vanity, my
I
preoccupation with my vanity, that killed that, because like, what more can you be affected by your vanity than facial disfiguration or hair loss, right? Dayna, as you've experienced, right?
Yeah.
And that combined with a very severe reaction I had to my first COVID shot, where my cycle lasted for a month. And I actually thought, I was like, am I going to bleed to death? Like, it just was so intense,
Yeah.
And then combined with hitting peri-menopause right after that extreme reaction from the vaccine, it all happened kind of at the same time. So it's like my body went into a state of shock, and then coming out of that was like a baptism by fire. And now it's like, whew, there's an urgency to life that I have now that is very connected to reality, that I'm not around for that long, and just try and maximize it while I'm here.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with my daughter about what it means to feel strong, what it means to feel healthy. Like, I'm trying to help my kids to really feel in to their bodies and to listen to the messages and to listen to the things that come forward. Because as I am going through these changes and having to accept my brain fog, the frustration that can bring on, the feeling of being old, like not being able to do as much because I get more tired, the reality of my body, of aging. And it's so terrifying, right? It really is. And I feel we're all in it. But I am reminded, as I was saying to my daughter, I'm reminded, what does it mean to me to feel strong, to feel empowered? So I do still like to be active. Yeah. I'm not going after the body I used to have, but I am still going out, even if it's for 20 minutes instead of 40 minutes. I will adjust. But what helps me to feel strong is to be active, to be moving, to be outdoors. I'm very mindful about when I feel my strongest. I feel my strongest sometimes when I am swimming, and sometimes when I'm sitting on a rock beside a river. So I can be still and taking in the energy of that river, or I can be in the river. Yeah. Like not in the raging current, but I can be in a lake. I can be in the water feeling strong as I move through it, or I can be sitting beside it and feeling equally as strong. So, but the point is that I have to take myself to those moments. I have to bring myself to those moments, because I want to feel the energy of that strength as I age, and it'll look different and it'll be different. But the feeling of feeling strong is when I feel most healthy.
So you're dialed into the connection with like nature's energy, with divinity, and being dialed into that, you're able to adjust your own level, like whether the moment calls for you to dive in and be physically active or just be observant and connected.
Yeah. And then I think to myself, holy shit, I feel so good. I feel so strong. And I'm 50.
Yes.
But I think when I feel I'm in a low vibe and I'm not helping myself get to that place of feeling strong, is when I will go into that like self-worth. And I'm aging, and I'm slow, and like that inner voice will kind of creep in.
You're depleted, right? That's, yeah.
We're not going to have the bodies that we had at 25, but we can have a pretty good body at 55.
Hell yeah.
Like, so it'll be different,
It'll be
but
different.
fuck, you know what? It'll be different, but that's okay because that's life.
I love my body now more than I did when I had a more aesthetically beautiful one in my 20s and 30s. I hug my body parts, and, you know, I'll do the hug jiggle where I just grab certain parts and jiggle and, you know, dance in front of my partner, and it's hilarious, and we laugh, and it's like, I have such a loving relationship with my body now. And it's interesting to have it at this age and not have it when I was younger.
I feel that way too.
It's liberating.
And and the irony, right? That I think that's where, for me, really embracing, like, part of, you know, this perimenopausal pooch is a really one where I'm like, I've had the 6-pack for so long, like, and actually just really loving on the changes, and also knowing that, like, I can manipulate it if I really want to, but for me, the bigger lesson here is really about embracing myself exactly who I am, like you said, and loving on those parts despite. Can I love the wrinkles? Can I love the sagging skin? Can I love the pooch? Maybe I don't love the brain fog, but I'm getting quite a bit of, like, joint pain, which is weird for me. And they're really funny because they come for like a day and then they're gone. And it's just like, so can I embrace that, which is a new thing for me too. I'm used to, like, being, especially in my physical body, being really able to, again, manipulate it or know what it needs. And instead I'm just choosing to note stuff. Or I actually find meditation has been the groundbreaking part for actually accepting all of these things in me. The funny part about that is meditation also can help lengthen telomeres. They're an anti-aging part in of itself. And that's kind of where I'm leaning into. And I notice that, like, through that process, I don't care about the wrinkles anymore. I don't judge myself about the body. And I know you guys know I openly share, you know, half naked kind of pictures of myself too. And at, you know, 51, some people might be going, I'm like, I don't care now. Whereas I would have been, even 10 years ago, I would have, with the 6-pack and all of the things in place, I would have been, you know, picking apart all of the faults in that. Whereas now I might have a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, look at that. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's something the stuff we talk about here, like the vulnerability about sharing. I think it's a bigger understanding of this is how we move through all of those earlier parts of our life, is through the sharing of some of the traumas and the experiences. And so if I can share that with you guys, I feel like I'm contributing to not only my own healing, but everybody's. Right?
Yeah.
I love how Eilina talks about identities, the death of these identities. And there are so many versions of us that we have celebrated and loved, and they've passed on. And now this is our version today. And I think there's such beauty in that. Like, I think if we can just really celebrate where we are today and not look back and try to be something that we were.
It's gone.
I mean, it's gone. It's gone. And if we are always doing that, we are going backwards.
Yeah, totally.
We are going backwards, literally.
There's often mental disturbances that come with that, right? There's, you know, these ideas of, you know, anxiety would be living in the future. Depression would be living in the past, right? We have to, if we're feeling stuck in that place, it's letting go. Again, these are just what I've learned for me. Those have been really, really helpful about, you know, these little catchphrase words that remind me, let it go. You're not there anymore.
This could be helpful for people who don't necessarily follow the moon cycles, in that the moon is so symbolic and such a helpful guide to remembering to let go. Right? So this every month.
And we can see this in nature, right? The tides are all linked to the moons too, right? Higher tides in one time of the moon cycle, and then these extreme low tides in the other. And so we can just, full moon for me, letting go, new moon, new intentions. What am I bringing in? You know, and the power, I find the full moons tend to be most impactful in the lead up. And then there's a release on the other side of that. Whereas I find new moons are actually the power kind of comes just after the new moon. And so those would be, what am I bringing in? And it's an easy kind of way to kind of just to check in once a month. I mean, this is what our womanly cycles are all linked to too. And, as we're phasing through that part of our lives, we're still connected to the moon cycle, even if we're not having a physical cycle. So they can be just these really great reminders.
Yeah. With that letting go in our womanly cycle, there's a new egg that's coming in when we're ovulating that's ripe. So letting go doesn't mean an absence of something. It just means creating space, house cleaning for the new form.
Yes.
And I find that's what is my probably biggest source of inspiration for the changes that have taken place in my body midlife. What I notice is like, I'm not as attached to the outcome, how it looks anymore. So long as I have, like, every day is lived where I'm in connection with someone or something, like nature or people. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's just my own connection to nature. If it's a day where I'm alone, even though I'm with clients, that seems to be the most important quality now going forward, is daily connection. And in the absence of feeling connected, there's reflection.
Yeah.
And then that reflection allows me to have better quality relational abilities with people.
Yes.
It just seems to, it seems to come organically now. It's not as forced as it used to be.
There's never, like, it's always a good time, whether it's a new moon or just any day, to celebrate intimacy, and know that intimacy is just not always just physical, like sex. That intimacy is shared time. That intimacy can be, music, like sharing, dancing, listening to music together.
Sensual connection with the senses. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With the senses. Yeah. So instead of like thinking about sensuality as being sex and intimacy, I think it's also good for everyone to know that sensuality is a sensory experience.
Yes.
So I just want to bring that up because I feel like, that for me is I've had to recognize that intimacy and sensuality is not directly related to sex.
Yeah.
And people can feel that at any age. Like they're like, I feel it. And then you're like, I'm not that into it.
That's common in middle age though, too, for women, right? The libido drop is quite huge, especially going through these perimenopausal. Yeah. Which can be really hard in relationships.
So how do we maintain this intimacy with our partners, with ourselves? It's really about connection.
Intimacy is different for both sexes. And so how, when, you just don't feel like doing it, literally, how do you have those conversations? I'm single, so it's not a conversation for me at this point. But how do you guys like share that with your partner? And, when you're maybe having, and it's not just like, one night here and there, but, for some women, it can be years where they really don't have any interest in sex. So what do you do to keep that, connection strong?
For me, it's a little different when you come out of a long-term relationship, either separation or divorce, and then come into a new relationship. There's like a rediscovery period, right? So, that there's just a lot of sex in that that time period. It's like a rediscovery.
I know it's like the only upside of divorce is that you get like a new husband. You're like,
totally.
You're pretty much
wife, right? Like you're like, oh my god, this is so
and there's
exciting.
a lot of connection. You feel like so alive again in that area. But then everything has a natural life cycle, and there's a natural ebb and flow. And so there was a period of an upswing, and then there's a natural down period where you find your regulation again. And, 9 years into my second partnership, we found that, and also combined with perimenopause from my experience, like, his libido is still strong, but mine dipped for obvious reasons. And so what has remained as intimate, like we still connect physically often, but the humor is where we have our intimacy. Because that's like we can joke about, like almost every day is a joke about whatever I'm feeling perimenopausal wise, there's some kind of joke to be had in the day about this physical,
Totally.
how many hours do we spend talking about my sleep? Like, how was your sleep today? And it was shit. And let me tell you all the 100 ways it was shit,
Covers off.
Oh my gosh.
And so at least we can have humor about the physical changes, about both of our midlife bodies. He's experiencing a midlife transformation just the way that, our men do too, but it's just, it's more subtle. Things change for them too, with their testosterone levels, with their libido. They had a certain comfort with their body, their physical strength in their 20s and 30s and 40s that changes in their 50s and 60s. And for men, when their strength changes, their concept of themselves changes, when their capacity around their strength changes, and they don't have the ease of conversation as much as us women do. So it can be a very isolating experience. Yeah. And the thing that maintains intimacy in that is humor and the ability to laugh at our human experience together with another soul and be on that ride together, ride or die buddy in the changing physical capacities.
My husband is not funny. And so, but I try to make up for it. So that might explain why I like to drop little witty things here and there, because that is my life. So humor, I would say as well, but I feel like I'm kind of the contributor of the humor. But I think the fun part is that my husband loves it and participates. So I can do all the nutty things, and he thinks it's amazing and fun.
He's a willing recipient.
And so that keeps things we make fun of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's intimacy.
That's what we do.
Making fun of ourselves is intimacy.
Yeah. And
there's
husband,
your book.
Yes. Making fun of ourselves is intimacy. I think it's the effort too, to show up for each other and still want to kind of date each other a little bit.
That's right.
So I find intimacy gets lost when we stop doing that.
Yes. 100%.
And I'm speaking of experience. I've been married for 16 years. When we stop doing that, I feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's when the intimacy is more of a struggle. Yeah. So humor and just creating little experiences of connection.
We can say the same thing with our children too, and with our family members. Are we willing to date them in the sense of what do we love about coffee dates? You're willing to bring yourself present to connect with the person and catch up and be in their world and care about their world and share from your world to receive being cared for and acknowledged. And there's this ebb and flow back and forth, like electricity along an electrical wire. It's exchange and exchange of energy, presence.
Yeah, it's the exchange of energy. It's reciprocity, that give and that take. It's not one-sided, it's two-way.
And it's not expectations based on roles.
Yeah.
And that can happen so much with parent-child. We just get delegated into these roles. It can happen with husband-wife, boyfriend-girlfriend, partner, partner to partner, just delegated into roles. And then the intimacy depletes with expectations. Yeah.
This is a pretty poignant time as far as a time period of changes. There's a lot of hormonal things going on in our physiology. So it takes a bit of time for these things to kind of wash out. But once it regulates, how beautiful is it, for couples to stay together through that and then open to the other side, which I've witnessed my parents do on the other side of raising children and businesses, and then finding time for them to connect in these later years of life, right? Without the responsibilities that go along with it. So yes. So yay to you guys for, finding ways to keep connected with your partners and, nourish that.
And also connected to self, right?
If we don't have that, then our current relationships in midlife, that's when they break down. So the relationship with self is tantamount in midlife, so that you can show up regulated and willing to engage with your partner. There's no marriage past 15 years that doesn't come close to divorce. not one marriage on this planet that doesn't come close to divorce after that long stage of being together. So to stay together and have what like your parents have, Dayna, in terms of like the willingness to date each other still in its own forms, right? Means that they've had to let die their old identities. They had to, because that amount of time together, you're in each other's shadows parts so much. You know your partner's shadow so well, and you're so sick of it, but you're still together, right? You're still together. Why? For the couples that stay together just because they couldn't evolve, that's kind of just survival. But the couples that stay together and did evolve past survival means like that's a massive achievement in life. They've had so many deaths of old identities. So kudos to that generation that figured it out.
Well, and there's not a lot of them. And I think that what I actually witnessed too is just how they bicker. There's a bicker since they've been married for, how many, almost 50 years or something like that. So they definitely know how to push each other's buttons, but there is underlying that there is a total acceptance, and whether they like it or not, I've had conversations with my mother about, some of the patriarchal pieces that are still in my father, but there's an acceptance with her. She's like, I know that's just your dad. Like it's probably not going to change as much as he has raised two very willing, capable daughters. He still has aspects of the patriarchy. So that willingness to accept the partner as they are, and there's still the love, there's still the things underneath. And I think it's just really, really beautiful. I think for all of us, like I said, any of our relationships, we really often try and change the other people, and that never works. It never goes well. So can we just accept ourselves, and can we accept others? And I feel like once we can accept ourselves, it's easier to accept the other.
It almost feels like accepting ourselves and accepting others means accepting their shadow.
Yeah.
And if you can get really clear about what their shadow is and what your shadow is, and that it will always be there, and every single person on the planet has one, that allows acceptance. Because then we're just acknowledging that we are both light and dark. We actually are. Everyone has the light and dark in them, and it doesn't mean we're bad. It just means we're balanced. No one can escape their shadow.
As is our days, right? We got a sun during the day and we got a moon at night, no matter what the clouds are doing, right?
And we're going to howl at times at the moon.
Yes. As a forest therapy guide, I was just doing a walk yesterday with these women, and it was so amazing. And we were talking about the edges that we run up against in our life. And one of the edges that I had when I was learning to become a forest therapy guide was when people wander out on a walk, you call them back. So you invite them to go and experience like a sensory moment with nature, and you invite them to do that on their own, and they go out for 15 or 20 minutes, and you call the group back. And as a nature and forest therapy guide, we are trained to call back with an animal call.
Oh my God, I love it.
And
what's your animal?
It was like, so I do an owl.
Okay, let's hear it.
But I just want to, okay, ready? Ready?
I love it.
Okay, it's a bit high. I don't know. I'm in my cabin here. But when I was doing my training, it was my biggest edge. Like I was like, I reserve animal sounds for like the bedroom. I do not go out with a group of people and like call them back with owl sounds. Like some people do coyote calls and other people do like crow caws. And I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. And it was like having to go to my primal like self, like in front of people. And so it was such a big edge for me to get over that. Huge. I didn't do it until like
That's
the end
so
of
good
my
for
training.
you. So good for
like,
you.
I was so right. But this is what we have to do in our life. We're going to run up against edges. We're going to run up against having to accept
a new identity,
a new version of ourselves, a new identity. And I think the magic lies in like surrendering to our wild primal, like, whatever that means,
I love that.
and and like come up against those edges, lean into the edges.
Ask yourself the
Right?
questions, right? Why am I resisting?
Ask yourself the questions. Why are you resisting? What are you not letting go of? So it just brings us full circle, right? To that moon, to the moon moment. What are we not letting go?
What a great invitation to our listeners, though, Meg. I got to say, to get curious about what their wild animal call will be, because you just made me realize that mine is the howler monkey. When I was living in Costa Rica, I loved replicating the howler monkey. Like even in my yoga classes, I would look for opportunities to share it with the students, because it just it's so funny. You made me realize that.
We want to hear it now, Arlena.
Okay.
Come on. Now I want to hear it. Of course we do.
Let's see here. That's the Costa Rican howler monkey.
This is amazing. Are you kidding? Welcome to the pod, Costa Rican howler monkey.
Thanks to you.
Oh my God.
So good.
So, okay. So, good. So Dayna, now it begs the question, what's your animal call?
Well, I haven't really been working on my animal call. I didn't realize that was a thing.
So when we are facing change and learning to accept ourselves and to have humor.
Totally.
And not so much, like, don't take ourselves so seriously. Think about your animal call.
Yes. A wolf.
The wolf.
It's the only one I can do.
Well, I love the wolf.
Very apropos to the moon, right? Howling to the moon.
That's why I thought too.
She's a woman who runs with the wolves. Literally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us today, friends. We hope you have as much fun exploring your animal call as we did today on the pod. Laughter is, after all, some of the best medicine available to us. We are growing here on the pod, and we are so excited to welcome our very first guest. My personal friend and registered clinical counselor, Misha Waite, will be here with us as we explore the topic of love and our interpretations of it. See you next time.